Hi guys, this is Nate Turner. This is my capstone presentation. There were four central research questions that I studied and examined as follows. But the purpose of this study was to explore collegiate coaches' perceptions of nepotism and discrimination and the impact it has on the hiring process. Number one, what is a coach's overall perception of nepotism and discrimination in collegiate professional sports? Number two, what is the coach's views of hiring family members, specifically within the sport of football? And number three, what are the coach's perceptions of hiring minorities, specifically in the sport of football? And finally, what are the coach's perceptions of possible solutions of addressing nepotism and discrimination in collegiate sports and professional sports? So basically, the lack of opportunities for minority coaches that have an opportunity to gain fair employment within the sport of football, in my experience, and as you'll see later in our presentation and other experiences as well, denied qualified coaches the opportunity to apply and accept football coaching positions. And my hope is to explore this issue and get better understanding of why this is happening and what can be done to ensure a fair hiring process. In the study of Cunningham, 2004, there was also some evidence that the hiring process was flawed due to nepotism. And the conclusion here, you'll see that the findings in this study highlighted a need for cultural change in the intercollegiate athletic departments. Proactive diversity and management is necessary to create positive outcomes and benefit diversity. So in his study also, throughout the purpose, participants, procedure, methods, results, and ultimately the application, he's shown the same flaws. In this next study, Husk, 2009, analysis the reasons why the lack of black head coaches at the Division I level and recommendations of improvement to solve this problem. His study was the same in a sense to where ultimately the participants conclusion could be agreed that there is a lack of diversity in hiring football coaches. The respondents recommend the proper implementation of policies and regulations. But here, the study of 36 head coaches, 200 assistant coaches at the NC2A level, and the results show as follows. So again, in this study, it shows that there was an inconsistency of diversity. This next study here, Mixon in 2004, talks about how race affects dismissals of college football coaches. So when you look at some of the highlights in this slide here, it talks about 81 universities over a 10-year period from 1990 to 2000. Schools were part of NC2A, the schools that are part of the Division I conference. They also, in the conclusion here, shown that there was a disparity between race and sport continues to grow, and the inequity still permeates throughout the regulations and remedy the problem, suggesting further methods of correction. So even in 2004, in the study from Mixon, shows that there was an issue with diversity and equitability within the hiring process of minorities. My methodology, these are essentially the tools that I've used to do this study, the research, my procedures. The research was conducted only after a primary research submitted to the institution review board application. The general information consent form was submitted and it was approved by our faculty advisor. So the studies that was designated to explore perceptions of nepotism and discrimination among collegiate and professional football coaches in the hiring process. So we used five assistant football coaches to take part in this study, one from the professional level, and there were two from the Division I level, and they were also two from the community college level. So these were five individuals that were used in this particular study The interview was conducted following semi-structured interview pool. Each interview was audio recorded, and the interviews lasted about 30 minutes, half an hour. So our participants were male assistant football coaches, and they were above 18 years of age, various ethnic backgrounds. Each participant had coached football for at least 5 years prior to engaging in the study for competency and credibility. So my main analysis was the results of those studies would show 3 different areas in which I wanted to focus on in order to investigate how the hiring process of football coaches are conducted and if they are affected by nepotism and discrimination. The study asked the participants 15 survey questions in the form of an interview. The survey was divided into 2 parts. It included 6 demographic questions and 9 open-ended questions. So one of the areas was consistency and family relations. And what that does is just, it kind of gives you an idea of who knows who, and if there was some consistency there, and the interviews results suggest that family connections play a role in hiring practices. You can use Bill Belichick and his son in our day and age now. You can use Pete Carroll and his son, and Norv Turner and his son, and the list goes on and on and on. Even Lombardi, his grandson is a coach or general manager for one of the NFL teams. So obviously it's prevalent in the National Football League, and it also permeates in collegiate sports as well. Adverse experiences, another theme that was explored, was the perception of hiring minorities in the sport of football. There seems to be obviously a proportionately lower candidate pool of minorities being selected for interviews. So with that being said, obviously the hiring process is slighted, and so some of the foreseeable solutions will be remedies. Respondents show how their ideas of solution. These presented ideas have shown nepotism and discrimination can be also alleviated and reduce the hiring process to become a fair practice. So within that scope, or within that scheme, or that platform is definitely flawed. The discussion basically between the candidates that I use to do the interview and get the research questions from, some were NFL coaches, college coaches, as I mentioned earlier, community college coaches, and they are fully aware of discrimination, but no one has actually made a big deal about it. The Rooney Rule is in place. The Rooney-Robinson Rule is in place for a reason. It's to show due process that these organizations have to interview and only interview candidates of a minority status, but not necessarily hire. So, for example, where coaches are hired based on recommendations from an established names of field, Forrester 2003, as a result, there has been discrimination in practice in hiring of coaches in the NFL who coached and hired based on their connections as opposed to their competence. So again, connections are everything. Who knows who knows you, kind of thing, where that doesn't necessarily bode well for minorities who want an opportunity, a fair shake, if you will, at applying for a position where they're already preconceived details in terms of who's going to get hired. Implications and conclusions. Participants admitted to being aware of less than favorable practices regarding hiring of football coaches, specifically black coaches. So again, black coaches are ongoing to interview, feeling like they have no shot in getting a job. I too personally have experienced that on several occasions where I felt as though my resume speaks for itself. My preparation and my preparedness has put me in a position to take advantage of some opportunities, but someone's son or someone's grandson or someone's buddy was able to get the position. So that kind of prompted me to do my study in this actual this study in this actual subject matter. So there's a large amount of distraction during the hiring process as well, whether they are trying to figure out how to finagle or how to predetermine who's going to be candidates, whether the application process is pulled or the actual committee is selected to determine who's on that committee to have an impact on the hiring process. While there are provisions in place to keep nepotism and discrimination from happening, current findings suggest that there is an overwhelming evidence that nepotism and discrimination is still relevant and in full practice in the current state of the sport. All right, there are not any immediate solutions, but with minority head coaches positions failing to create an uptake and failing to be broadened enough to represent the current demographic of athletes, it can be assumed that the NFL, Division I, college community coaches are all due for some significant changes in the way they're approaching the fairness and diversity. And I've noticed myself that inclusion and diversity has been a big component in which they want to implement, but they have yet to find out an effective way to implement that. These are my references, and that's it. So hopefully you guys understood where I was coming from. You guys got the logistics of what I'm saying, and hopefully we can put a stop to or make it all fair for not just minorities, but the fairness of the hiring process in its whole entirety. Thank you.